The conference hall stretched across 300 meters of polished crystal, reflecting the light of 7 suns from 7 different home systems. Ambassador Deho stood at the human delegation's table, watching the council members file in for the morning session. This was routine now, after 300 years of cooperation. The aliens no longer stared at humans with curiosity. They barely looked at them at all. Hai-Jin sat beside Deho, her tablet displaying the day's agenda. 17 items, and humans were involved in 14 of them. She'd stopped being surprised by this years ago. When the Vren needed someone to fix their food distribution crisis, they asked humans. When the Coultery colonies needed new power systems, they asked humans. When the entire council needed someone to actually do the work, they always asked humans. Taesoon walked into the hall carrying a stack of data crystals. Each one contained solutions to problems the council had spent decades arguing about. The atmospheric processors for the Quillen homeworld were ready. The translation updates that would finally let the Denari and the Krellum understand each other were complete. The new medical protocols that could save millions on Telian Prime were tested and approved. All human work. All done because someone needed to actually solve problems instead of just talking about them. They're going to vote on the trade agreements today, Ji Woo whispered to Hai-Jin. She'd been watching the Thelian delegation carefully. Something felt wrong about how they were clustering together, whispering, avoiding eye contact with the human table. Deho had noticed it too. 3 centuries of diplomatic experience had taught him to read rooms, and this room felt different. The usual casual greetings were absent. The Vren counselor who normally stopped by to thank humans for their help with his planet's orbital farms hadn't even glanced their direction. The session began. The council chair, a tall Coultery named Veth, ran through the standard opening ceremonies. Then came the votes. Minor items passed quickly. Then Veth announced the next item with careful neutrality. Proposal 1742. Temporary adjustment of voting protocols to ensure balanced representation. Hai-Jin's fingers flew across her tablet, pulling up the proposal text. Her face went pale. Deho, she whispered. This removes our voting rights on economic matters. The ambassador read quickly. The language was careful, wrapped in words like temporary and balanced and fair representation. But the meaning was clear. Humanity had the largest population in council space. Humans paid 70% of the council's operational costs. And now 17 species wanted to make sure human votes didn't count as much as theirs. Deho requested permission to speak. Veth granted him 2 minutes. This proposal targets one species specifically, Deho said, keeping his voice level. The charter guarantees equal representation. This violates that principle. Veth nodded politely. Your objection is noted. The vote will proceed. 17 votes in favor. 1 against. The humans. Taesoon watched the voting board in disbelief. The Quillen voted for it. The Quillen, whose entire planet would be uninhabitable without the atmospheric processors humans had built for them. The Vren voted for it. The Vren, whose people would have starved without human agricultural systems. Jiwoo understood before the others. She'd studied human history, read about the patterns that emerged when fear replaced gratitude. The council species had become dependent on humanity, and dependency bred resentment. They needed humans too much, and now they wanted to punish humans for being needed. After the session, Deho called a meeting of the human delegation. 50 people gathered in their embassy complex. The building humans had constructed themselves because no alien contractor could match their engineering standards. This is just the beginning, Hai-Jin said, pulling up her analysis. She'd been tracking voting patterns, proposal language, private communications between council members. The data painted a clear picture. They're going to keep doing this. Small cuts, one after another, until we're powerless. Sung-ho ran the operations center that coordinated all human activities in council space. His screen showed thousands of humans spread across dozens of worlds. Rescue workers saving alien lives in dangerous situations. Engineers maintaining systems the aliens no longer understood. Teachers educating alien children. Doctors treating alien diseases. Scientists solving alien problems. "We do everything," Sung-ho said quietly. "When did we become servants instead of partners?" Young Mi managed the databases that tracked every human commitment. She knew exactly how much humanity gave to the council and how little they received in return. Humans had built the translation network everyone used. Humans had designed the medical systems that served 17 species. Humans had created the rescue services that operated in every corner of council space. And in exchange, humans got restrictions and regulations and votes that stripped away their rights. Daeho sent a message back to Earth, marked urgent. President Wu Jin needed to know what was happening. The council was turning against humanity, and it would get worse before it got better. The weeks that followed proved Hai-Jin right. More proposals, more restrictions, more careful language that meant the same thing. Humans were too successful, too competent, too necessary. The council needed to cut them down before they became too powerful. The irony was suffocating. Humans had never sought power. They just solved problems because someone needed to actually do the work. The final insult came 3 months later. The Sapiens Protocols, they called it. Regulations on cognitive enhancement, artificial intelligence research, genetic optimization. Every clause targeted human technology, human innovation, human advancement. The species that contributed nothing wanted to control everything humans created. Daeho requested an emergency session. They gave him 5 minutes at the end of a 12-hour meeting. He spoke about partnership and principles and the dangerous road the council had chosen. They thanked him politely and voted anyway. 15-3 this time. The Quillen and the Vren had at least abstained, but it wasn't enough. That night, Daeho stood on the embassy balcony, looking out at the alien city surrounding the council complex. Humans had built half of it. Human engineering, human design, human labor. And the beings living in those buildings had just voted to restrict human progress. Hai-Jin found him there. Earth responded, she said. President Wu Jin wants recommendations. Daeho turned away from the view. After 300 years, after everything humanity had given, the answer was obvious. But saying it out loud would change everything. Tell the president, he said slowly, that it's time to come home. President Wu Jin sat in the Seoul headquarters, reading Daeho's report for the 3rd time. His chief of staff, Baur, waited patiently while he processed the implications. 300 years of partnership, ending not with war or catastrophe, but with paperwork and voting procedures. How many restrictive measures? Wu Jin asked. 37 in the last 18 months, Baur replied. She'd compiled everything into a single document. Voting restrictions, trade limitations, travel controls, technology regulations, research prohibitions. Everyone technically legal under council charter provisions. Everyone clearly targeting humanity. And our people? The volunteers, the workers, the diplomats? Still there. Still doing everything the council needs. Sung-ho reports no change in workload. If anything, they're asking for more help. Wu Jin found that darkly amusing. The council was systematically stripping away human rights while simultaneously depending on human labor to keep their civilization running. Did they not see the contradiction? Or did they simply not care? Back at the council complex, Hai-Jin was documenting the latest incident. A human medical team had saved 6,000 lives during an outbreak on Thalian Prime. The Thalian government's official response was a formal, complain about humans exceeding their authorized jurisdiction. Never mind that, without the human team, those 6,000 people would be dead. Taesung stopped by her office with more bad news. They're proposing new restrictions on human commercial vessels. Maximum of 5 ships per sector, regardless of cargo demand. We have 200 ships operating in the Vren sectors alone, Hyjin said. Those sectors depend on human cargo services. Their own shipping collapsed 20 years ago. I know. They know. They don't care. Ji Woo had been researching historical precedents from Earth's own past. She found dozens of examples. When one group became too successful, too necessary, too competent, others resented them for it. Fear and envy were powerful forces, more powerful than gratitude or logic. She presented her findings to Daeho. This is about control, she explained. They can't compete with us, so they're trying to handicap us. It's not rational, but it's predictable. Daeho listened carefully. Ji Woo was young, but she understood patterns that older diplomats missed. What's the endgame? He asked. Either they push us out entirely, or they reduce us to a servant class. Either way, they remove the threat we represent. We're not a threat. We've never been a threat. We're a threat to their self-image. Every time we solve a problem they can't solve, we remind them of their own inadequacy. Some species can handle that. Apparently, most can't. The proposals kept coming. Limits on human population in council space. Restrictions on human ownership of property. Requirements that all human enterprises have alien oversight. The language was always careful, always wrapped in justifications about fairness and balance and proper procedure. Sungho watched his operations board light up with requests. A Kolthari colony needed emergency life support repairs. A Vren agricultural station was failing. The council's own central hub needed maintenance on systems only humans knew how to service. Every day brought new crises that only humans could solve, and every week brought new restrictions on what humans were allowed to do. Young Dash may notice something in the data patterns. The species voting most aggressively against human rights were the same ones requesting the most human assistance. The Thelians wanted humans banned from their commercial sectors while simultaneously begging for human engineers to fix their infrastructure. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. She showed her analysis to Sungho. They want us powerless but available. They want to use our skills without respecting our rights. That's not sustainable, Sungho said. No, it's not. Daeho called for another emergency session. This time, they gave him 3 minutes. He spoke plainly about the contradiction between restricting humans and relying on them. He pointed out that the council was destroying the partnership that had made it strong. He warned that this path led nowhere good. Veth, now the senior council chair, responded with bureaucratic platitudes about difficult decisions and necessary adjustments and the importance of following proper procedures. The vote proceeded, 19-1. Even the Quillen voted against humanity this time. After the session, a Quillen counselor approached Hyjin privately. We don't want this, he said quietly. But if we vote with you, we become the next target. You understand, don't you? Hyjin understood perfectly. Fear was contagious. The council members were more afraid of each other than they were grateful to humanity. So they voted together, protected themselves, and let humans bear the consequences. That night, Daeho sent another message to Earth. This one was shorter, more direct. Recommend immediate withdrawal. The council has made its choice. We should make ours. President Wu Jin called an emergency cabinet meeting. 17 ministers gathered in the Situation Room, reviewing 3 centuries of human investment in council space. The infrastructure humans had built. The systems humans maintained. The lives humans had saved. The problems humans had solved. Can we afford to leave? The finance minister asked. Baora had the numbers ready. We can't afford to stay. They're systematically cutting off our economic rights while expecting us to maintain their economic systems. We're subsidizing our own subjugation. What happens to them if we leave? The foreign minister asked. Unknown. Many systems will fail. They'll have to learn to maintain them or build new ones. People will die, the health minister said quietly. People die now while we save them and they vote to restrict us, Baora replied. How long do we enable their dependency? Wu Jin let them debate for hours. Every argument was valid. Every concern was real. But the conclusion was inevitable. Humanity had tried partnership. The council had chosen subjugation. There were only two options left: accept it or leave. Draft the withdrawal notice, Wu Jin finally said. Per Article 47 of the Council Charter. We'll give them the required 60 days. Daeho received the authorization at dawn. He read it twice, feeling the weight of 300 years pressing down. Humans had come to the council with hope and optimism. They'd given everything they had. And now they were leaving because partnership required mutual respect. And the council had stopped respecting humanity the moment they became dependent on it. He called Hai Jin, Ta-Sung, and Ji Woo to his office. We're going home, he said simply. Hai Jin nodded slowly. She'd known this was coming. When? 60 days. We need to coordinate with Sungho. Every human, every project, every commitment. We're going to do this properly. They'll try to stop us, Jiwoo said. Let them try. We're following their own rules. Article 47 gives any member species the right to withdraw with 60 days' notice. No exceptions, no appeals. Tae-Sung was already thinking about logistics. We have 17,000 humans spread across council space. Getting everyone home in 60 days will be complicated. Sungho can do it, Daeho said. If anyone can coordinate this, he can. That afternoon, Daeho submitted the formal notice. 1 page, simple language, citing Article 47. The Earth government hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective 60 standard days from this date. The council clerk who received it barely glanced at the document. Withdrawal notices were rare, but they happened. Small species that couldn't keep up with council obligations sometimes left. The clerk filed it in the standard database and moved on to other paperwork. It would be 3 days before anyone important actually read what Daeho had submitted. By then, Sungho had already started bringing humans home. Sungho stared at his operations board, watching 17,000 points of light scattered across council space. Each light represented humans working on alien worlds, keeping alien systems running, solving alien problems. In 60 days, every single one of them needed to be home. Young-Mi stood beside him, her tablet already displaying the logistics framework. We start with the emergency teams, she said. Rescue workers, disaster response, medical crisis units. They're the easiest to extract because they already have rapid deployment protocols. How many? 3,200. They can be home in a week. Sungho nodded. Do it. Notify them today. The first teams received their recall orders within hours. A human medical unit on Thelian Prime in the middle of treating an outbreak. A rescue team on a Coal-3 mining station. Disaster response workers on 6 different worlds. All of them got the same message. Pack up, transfer your work logs. Come home. The Thelian health minister contacted Daeho immediately. You can't withdraw the medical team. We still have 4,000 active cases. Train your own people, Daeho replied calmly. We've sent you the protocols. Your medical staff are competent. They can handle it. But the human team has experience with this specific outbreak. They do. And in 6 days, that experience will be back on Earth. I suggest you learn quickly. The mining station director was more direct. If your rescue team leaves, who handles emergencies? That's your problem now, Sungho told him. You've spent 300 years letting humans handle your safety operations. Maybe it's time you invested in your own capabilities. Across council space, the pattern repeated. Humans began packing up, transferring knowledge, closing down operations. They weren't sabotaging anything. They were simply leaving and taking their expertise with them. Aijin managed the diplomatic withdrawals. Every embassy, every consulate, every official human presence in council territory. She coordinated with local governments, transferred property deeds, closed accounts, archived records. Everything done properly, by the book, following every regulation. The Vren ambassador requested a meeting. Please reconsider, he said. The food distribution systems your people built are vital to our colonies. Then maintain them, Aijin replied. We built them. We documented everything. The manuals are in your databases. But we don't understand the manuals. They're too complex. They're not complex. You just never bothered to learn because humans were always available to do it for you. That's not our problem anymore. Taesung handled the technical extraction. This was the complicated part. Humans had built or modified systems throughout council space. Power grids, communication networks, transportation systems, medical equipment, agricultural technology. 300 years of innovation and integration thought the systems themselves weren't the issue. Humans weren't vindictive. They left everything functional. But they took the knowledge home. Access credentials were deleted. Administrative overrides were removed. Source code was transferred to Earth servers. Documentation that explained how things actually worked was archived and removed from Council. Databases.gwu watched a Coultery engineer try to access the power grid management system on their capital world. The engineer had the passwords. The system accepted the login, but every command returned error codes the engineer didn't understand because humans had written the system in human programming languages, with human logic structures and human documentation. Can you help me understand this? The engineer asked Jiwoo. No, she said simply. I'm going home in 48 hours. You should have asked these questions 3 years ago. Or 30 years ago, or any time in the last 300 years when humans were here and willing to teach. The council finally understood what was happening on day 7. Beth called an emergency session. Daeho attended but said nothing. He just sat at the human delegation's table while council members argued and shouted and demanded. This is abandonment. A Thelian counselor yelled. You can't just leave. Daeho stood calmly. Article 47 of the Charter you wrote. Any member species can withdraw with 60 days' notice. We gave you notice. We're following your rules. But the systems you built are still there. Still functional. Still working. We built them, we documented them, we left them for you. What we took home was our people and our knowledge. Those were never yours to keep. You're being vindictive. Daeho's calm finally cracked. Vindictive? You spent 80 months passing laws to restrict our rights while demanding we do all your work for you. You treated us like servants. And now that we're leaving, you're angry because you'll have to actually do things yourselves? The chamber went silent. We came here 300 years ago as partners, Daeho continued. You turned us into tools. When we objected, you voted to give us even fewer rights. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. He sat down. The session ended in chaos. Over the following weeks, the human exodus continued. Sungho moved systematically through his operations board. Researchers came home from alien laboratories. Teachers left alien schools. Engineers abandoned construction projects. Traders closed their businesses. Every single human in council space received recall orders and departure schedules. Young Me tracked it all in her databases. Every person accounted for. Every project transferred or terminated. Every commitment formally concluded. No one could say humans left irresponsibly. They followed procedures, met obligations, did everything properly. The council tried negotiation. VEF sent delegations to the human embassy. They offered concessions. They'd reverse some restrictions. They'd restore voting rights. They'd make changes. Hyjin listened politely to every offer. Then she said no. You had 300 years to treat us as partners. You had 18 months to stop making things worse. You had every opportunity to choose differently. You chose this. We're just accepting your choice. On day 30, something broke. The Council's central translation network crashed. 17 species suddenly couldn't understand each other. The system was entirely human-designed, human-built, human-maintained. The aliens had the hardware, but the software was a black box written in human code. They begged for help. Daeho said no. The Quillen atmospheric processors started showing errors on day 35. Not failures, just errors. Warning lights that no one knew how to interpret. The Quillens sent urgent messages. The human technicians who'd maintained the processors for 50 years were already home. Send us the documentation, the Quillen pleaded. We left it in your databases, Taesoon replied. Right, where it's been for 50 years. Maybe read it this time. More systems show problems. Nothing catastrophic yet, but warning signs that aliens didn't know how to interpret. Equipment that needed maintenance, no one knew how to perform. Software that needed updates, no one knew how to write. By day 50, panic was setting in. The council held daily emergency sessions, but there was nothing to discuss. The humans were leaving. The systems were still there. The knowledge was gone. Sungho brought the last group home on day 58. A small team of embassy staff, including Daeho, Hyjin, Taesoon, and Ji-woo. They stood on the transport pad, looking at the council complex one final time. Any regrets? Ji-woo asked. Daeho shook his head. We tried. We really tried. But you can't have partnership with people who only want servants. The transport engaged. In a flash of light, they were gone. On day 60, the human ambassador's chair sat empty in the council chamber. For the first time in 300 years, no human voice spoke in the debates. No human expertise solved the problems. No human patience held the council together. Veth looked at the empty chair and finally understood. The humans hadn't walked away angry. They'd walked away tired. Tired of being used. Tired of being restricted. Tired of giving everything and receiving nothing but resentment. The council would endure. But the golden age was over, ended not by war or catastrophe, but by simple human dignity. They'd asked to be treated as equals. The council refused. So the humans went home. It was the quietest disaster in galactic history. The Quillen atmospheric processors failed on day 73. Not all at once, but in cascading sequence. Station 7 stopped working. Then Station 12. Then Stations 4, 9, and 16. The remaining stations struggled to compensate, their warning systems flashing alerts that no one alive on Quillen knew how to interpret. The planetary director contacted Earth directly. President Wu Jian took the call personally. We need technical assistance, the director said, trying to hide the panic in his voice. The processor documentation is incomprehensible. We need someone who understands the systems. You have the documentation, Wu Jin replied calmly. The same documentation your people ignored for 50 years while humans did all the work. But we don't have time to learn. If the processors fail completely, our atmosphere becomes toxic within weeks. Then I suggest you learn very quickly. The director's voice rose. You'd let millions die to make a point? No, Wu Jin said quietly. You'd let millions die because you spent 300 years refusing to maintain your own planetary life support. That's not our failure. That's yours. He ended the call. But Ora stood nearby, watching. That was harsh, was it? How many times did we offer to train their technicians? How many training programs did they ignore because human experts were cheaper than educating their own people? 17 times. Over 40 years. 17 times we tried to make them self-sufficient. They refused every time. We can't save people from their own choices forever. The Quillen managed to stabilize 6 processors. 8 failed completely. They evacuated the affected regions, relocating 14 million people into areas that still had breathable air. The crisis made news across Council space. Everyone waited for Earth to step in, to send help, to fix things like humans always did. Earth said nothing. On day 81, the Vren food distribution network collapsed. The system was entirely automated, designed by human agricultural engineers decades ago. It had worked flawlessly for so long that the Vren had eliminated their own food distribution infrastructure. Why maintain redundant systems when the human one never failed? Except now there were no humans to maintain it. The Vren tried to access the system's core programming. They found files in languages they didn't understand, using logic structures their computers couldn't process. The documentation existed, technically, but it was written by humans for humans, assuming a level of technical knowledge the Vren didn't possess. Storehouses full of food sat idle while people in the colonies went hungry. The food was there. The transportation existed. But the network that coordinated everything was a black box that no one could open. The Vren ambassador arrived on Earth, requesting an urgent meeting. Hai-Jin, now Earth's foreign minister, received him in her sole office. We're willing to pay, the ambassador said. Name your price. Send engineers, just until we can train our own people. You've had 50 years to train your own people, Hai-Jin replied. You chose not to. You chose to depend on us instead. People are hungry. Yes, because your government made choices. You eliminated your own systems. You refused to learn ours. You voted to restrict our rights while expecting us to maintain your infrastructure. These are consequences of your decisions. You're punishing us. Hai-Jin's expression hardened. We're not punishing anyone. We're simply not saving you from yourselves anymore. There's a difference. The ambassador left empty-handed. The Council's central translation network remained offline. 17 species trying to coordinate relief efforts couldn't understand each other. They tried to rebuild it, but the network was too complex. It had taken humans 70 years to develop, integrating linguistic databases from every Council species. The aliens couldn't replicate it in weeks. Meetings became chaos. Species brought their own translators, but the old systems were slow and inaccurate. Misunderstandings multiplied. Arguments erupted over simple miscommunications. The council sessions that once lasted hours now took days to accomplish anything. Veth tried to hire human engineers as private consultants. She sent messages to former council workers, offering enormous salaries. Most didn't respond. Those who did all said the same thing. They'd moved on to other work. On day 94, a Kolfari colony ship lost life support in deep space. The ship was human-designed, part of a fleet built 40 years ago. It had worked perfectly until a minor malfunction triggered a cascade failure in systems the Kolfari crew didn't understand. They sent distress calls. The old human rescue service would have responded within hours. But there was no rescue service anymore. The humans had run it, staffed it, funded it. When they left, they'd offered to train council species to take over. No one had volunteered. The colony ship drifted for 6 days before a Thelian vessel managed to reach it. By then, 2,000 colonists were dead. The survivors were rescued, but the incident haunted Council space. There were dozens of human-designed ships in service. Any one of them could fail the same way. The Council held emergency sessions to address the crisis. They argued about funding, about training programs, about emergency response protocols. They debated for weeks. Nothing changed because no one wanted to pay for systems they'd gotten free when humans provided them. Ora tracked the cascade failures from Earth. Her reports to President Wu Jin were clinical, detailed, devastating. The Quillan atmospheric crisis, the Vren food shortage, the Coultery colony disaster, the translation network collapse, the medical system's failures, the power grid problems. How many dead? Wu Jin asked. Difficult to confirm. Conservative estimate? 40,000 in the first 3 months. And if we'd stayed, most of them would be alive. But we'd still be servants, and they'd still be taking us for granted. Wu Jin looked out his office window at the Seoul skyline. Somewhere down there, Daeho was enjoying retirement. Sungho was teaching at the university. Youngmi was working in the historical archives. All of them home, free from the thankless work of maintaining an ungrateful civilization. Any requests for mutual aid? Wu Jin asked. 317 so far. We've denied them all per your standing order. Good. Let me know if anything changes. The Council tried desperately to reverse engineer human technology. They hired the best alien engineers, offered massive funding, created research programs. Some progress was made. The translation network came back online after 4 months, though it only worked for 6 languages and was prone to crashes. The Quillan managed to build new atmospheric processors, simpler than the human designs but functional. It took 8 months. The temporary evacuations became permanent relocations. The Vren rebuilt their food distribution, but the new system was inefficient and required 10 times the staff. Food reached the colonies, but prices tripled. Each species addressed their immediate crises, but the larger problem remained. Humans had built integrated systems that worked across Council space. The aliens were rebuilding isolated solutions that barely worked within single planets. The efficiency was gone. The coordination was gone. The golden age was gone. Veth sat in her office on day 180, reviewing reports. Every species in the Council had suffered significant setbacks, some more than others, but all affected. The Thelians had managed better than most. Their natural skepticism of human help meant they'd maintained some independent capabilities. The Quillan and Vren had suffered worst, their complete dependence leaving them most vulnerable. She drafted a message to Earth, a personal note to Daeho. She apologized. She admitted the Council had made mistakes. She asked if there was any path back to cooperation. Daeho's response came 3 days later. It was brief. We were partners once. You chose to make us servants. That choice has consequences. When you're ready to offer genuine partnership again, not just desperation, contact us. Until then, we wish you well. Veth read it twice. She understood the message. The humans weren't coming back to fix things. Not now. Maybe not ever. The Council would have to learn to function without them. It was the hardest lesson in galactic history, taught not through war or conquest, but through simple absence. The humans had walked away quietly, and the galaxy was learning what it meant to stand on its own. 5 years after the humans left, Veth walked through the Council complex in the early morning. The building was quieter now. Half the species had withdrawn from active participation, maintaining only minimal presence. The Grand Chamber that once hosted 17 delegations regularly now saw maybe 8 on a good day. She stopped at the human delegation's old section. The chairs were still there, gathering dust. No one had moved them. No one wanted to acknowledge what the empty space represented. The Quillen had survived their atmospheric crisis, but barely. 3 of their continents were permanently evacuated now. The population that once numbered 8 billion was down to 4 billion, spread across the remaining habitable zones. The new processors worked, but they were crude compared to human engineering. The Quillen lived, but they endured. The Vren food crisis had stabilized after 18 months of shortages. Their new distribution system functioned, but it required constant attention and enormous resources. Where human systems had run efficiently with minimal oversight, the Vren system needed tens of thousands of workers doing manual coordination. It worked. It just cost 10 times more in money and effort. The Coultery had grounded their entire deep space colony program after the disaster. Too dangerous, they decided. They'd lost too many people to systems they didn't understand. New ships were being designed, simpler and safer. But the expansion that had defined Coultery civilization for 2 centuries had stopped cold. Veth sat in her office reviewing the Council's current state. They'd learned to function without humans. That was the good news. The bad news was everything else. Trade between Council species was down 60%. The coordination networks humans had built were gone. New systems existed, but they were slow and inefficient. Species that had once traded freely across hundreds of light years now struggled with basic commerce. The medical exchange programs had collapsed completely. Human-designed diagnostic systems sat idle in hospitals across 17 worlds. The aliens had learned to work around them, using older technology and accepting lower accuracy. More people died from misdiagnosis, but the species endured. Scientific collaboration, once the Council's pride, had virtually ceased. The research networks required infrastructure no one had bothered to maintain after humans left. Young alien scientists grew up never knowing what had been possible. The most painful loss was the rescue service. In 5 years, there had been 14 disasters where a fast response could have saved lives. In the old days, human rescue teams would have been on scene within hours. Now there was no service at all. Species tried to help each other, but coordination was poor. Thousands died who would have lived. Veth received regular reports on Earth. Baora, now Earth's ambassador at large, maintained polite diplomatic channels. She was professional, courteous, and absolutely uninterested in resuming the old relationship. The reports showed Earth thriving. With their energy and resources no longer subsidizing Council infrastructure, humans had turned inward. Their technology had advanced rapidly. Their colonial expansion proceeded efficiently. They built exactly the kind of civilization they'd helped the Council create. Except this one was entirely their own. Some Council species still sent requests to Earth, usually desperate pleas for help with some failing system. Hyjin's foreign ministry maintained a polite, consistent response. Earth was willing to trade on fair terms. Earth was willing to share knowledge for appropriate compensation. Earth was willing to help as equals. What Earth would not do was send experts to fix Council problems for free. Those days were over. Deho lived in Bizen now, in a quiet apartment overlooking the ocean. He'd received 347 personal messages from former Council colleagues over the 5 years. He answered them all eventually. The messages fell into categories. Some were angry, blaming humans for abandoning them. Some were apologetic, acknowledging the Council's mistakes. Some were simply sad, mourning what had been lost. His responses varied, but the core message was always the same. The Council had made choices. Humans had made choices. Everyone was living with the consequences. One afternoon, he received a message from the Quillen counselor who'd voted against humanity at the end. The one who'd explained that voting with humans would make them the next target. "You were right," the message said. "We chose fear over friendship. I understand now what that cost us. Not just your expertise, but the partnership itself. We had something valuable, and we destroyed it because we were afraid of depending on you. The irony is we depended on you anyway. We just refused to admit it." Deho wrote back, "Thank you for understanding. It doesn't change what happened, but understanding matters." Young Mi's Historical Archives project had become Earth's definitive record of the Council years. She'd compiled everything. The early partnership years, when cooperation felt genuine. The middle period, when dependency began breeding resentment. The final years, when fear overcame gratitude. The withdrawal. The consequences. Students studied it now. The lesson wasn't about alien species being ungrateful. The lesson was about the dynamics of dependency, the psychology of resentment, the importance of mutual respect in any relationship. It was about knowing when to help and when to step back. About understanding that you couldn't save people who didn't want to save themselves. Taesung taught engineering now at the Seoul Technical Institute. His students learned to build systems for humans by humans. He told them stories about council projects, about the mistakes made when designing for species who wouldn't maintain what you built, about the difference between helping someone and enabling their dependency. Dak Ji-woo had become Earth's foremost expert on interspecies relations. Her research examined the patterns that had led to council failure. She'd identified the warning signs humans had missed, the points where intervention might have changed the outcome. Her work wasn't about blame. It was about understanding, so humans wouldn't repeat the same mistakes. The council still existed. That was important to acknowledge. Veth and the remaining delegates had found ways to function. They'd accepted the limitations of their capabilities and worked within them. Trade happened, though slowly. Cooperation existed, though clumsily. They endured, but endurance wasn't the same as thriving. The council members lived in the shadow of what they'd lost. Every inefficient system reminded them of human efficiency. Every failed coordination reminded them of human competence. Every disaster reminded them of the rescue service that no longer existed. Some species adapted better than others. The Thelians, who'd led the anti-human movement, struggled most. Their infrastructure had been extensively human-built. Their systems failed regularly. Their pride prevented them from asking Earth for help, even as paid consultants. They suffered for their choices. The Quillen, who'd at least abstained from the final votes, maintained better relations with Earth. They traded fairly, paid for technical assistance when needed, and slowly rebuilt their world. It would take generations to recover fully, but they'd survive. The Vren had learned humility the hard way. Their ambassador to Earth was instructed to explore genuine partnership, not the old dependency. Hygiene listened to their proposals with interest. Maybe someday. Not yet. But someday. President Wu Jing, now in his second term, gave a speech on the 5-year anniversary of withdrawal. He spoke about the lessons learned, about the importance of self-reliance, about the danger of one-sided partnerships, about the value of walking away from relationships that didn't serve both parties. "We don't regret helping the council," he said. "We regret not demanding mutual respect. We regret enabling dependency instead of encouraging capability. We regret staying too long in a relationship that had stopped being partnership. Some call our withdrawal cruel. I call it necessary. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is force people to stand on their own." The council is standing now. Not easily, not comfortably, but standing. That's their achievement, not ours. In the council chamber, Veth watched the speech. She understood the message. The humans weren't coming back to save them. The council had to save itself. 5 years of endurance had taught hard lessons. Systems could be rebuilt, though not as elegantly. Knowledge could be relearned, though not as quickly. Capability could be developed, though not as efficiently. The council species were capable. They'd just forgotten because humans had made capability optional. Now capability was mandatory. Endurance was mandatory. Self-reliance was mandatory. The council was learning, slowly and painfully, how to function without the humans who'd carried them for 300 years. Veth drafted her monthly report to the remaining council delegates. The news was mixed, as always. Some systems stabilizing. Some species withdrawing further. Some small successes, many ongoing struggles. They endured. At the end, she added a personal note. 5 years ago, we thought the humans were abandoning us. We understand now that we abandoned ourselves. We had the opportunity to learn from the best partners we'd ever had. Instead, we chose to use them and resent them for being useful. The humans walked away quietly, and we've spent 5 years learning why we needed them so much. Perhaps in another 5 years, we'll be capable of deserving partnership again. Until then, we endure. Deho read Veth's message in his business apartment.